I kind of begrudgingly respect just the dedication to not getting better at what you do for a living. Just coast through life.
It probably shouldn't even happen.
If you got it, you got to flaunt it, Acid.
You know what? I got a lot of stuff that I don't want to flaunt, and so I just keep it to myself.
Jeremy is really big into the used mattresses. That's an excellent deal.
He has a used mattress store on the side. And we found out that Anthony's friends are all 13-year-old boys. Nice.
Whoever wins gets Acid's ball soap.
Clay, how you doing?
Doing a little more poorly after that terrible introduction. I was just fine, to be honest with you.
Hello, Sci Fi Gangstas. This is the show where we talk about science fiction, comic books, and video games, but really it's just an excuse for me to catch up with my friends, old and new. I'm Anthony Dinar, media scholar and person with crackhead dad energy, as Lindsay said. You thought I was going to hold on to it for a while there, but I started off with it. But Lindsay, that's how you described my behavior before the show, is crackhead dad energy, and I enjoy it. I'm going to embrace it. Thank you so much. But today's show, kids. Yeah, there you go. Today's show, we're talking about, today's topic is top female comic book characters. That's what we're talking about today, and we'll get to that very shortly here. Of course, you can always listen to us on Spotify. You can listen to our podcast version, audio only. Maybe you're working out, you're doing chores at home, and you want to listen to us. Or if you can also just watch us on YouTube, like and subscribe, and all that kind of good stuff. But let's go ahead and get to our panelists. As you, if you're a huge fan of the show, and I know there's one of you out there, if you're a huge fan of the show, there's one, and it's not my mom or my wife.
They don't even watch you.
None of those two people are a fan of my show.
That's okay.
But once again, if you're a fan of the show, you know that one of our regulars, or I should say actually co-host, is Jeremy Shepard. Jeremy Shepard is not here. He's doing very important things. I'm not sure what he's doing. He's probably out and about doing something very important.
He didn't tell you he had to restock his used mattress store.
He had to restock his used. Jeremy's really big into the used mattress.
Huge.
Do we already have inside jokes on this show? Is that what we have on this show?
I think
anyways,
so.
Of course we do, Stallion.
That's
Yeah,
true.
we do
Stallion, there's
Stallion.
another
Yeah.
one, right?
That's how popular we've become.
I always get on Xbox Live and I play with 12-year-old kids and I tell them that my name is Stallion.
You need to stop saying that in something
witnessed
to be
it.
recorded.
But Jeremy's not here. But we don't need him. We can have 3 people on the show. We don't always need to have 4, right? I miss him already though. But we'll go ahead and move on without Jeremy. But today's guests, we have my co-host here. We have Acidtrain. Acid, how are you doing?
I'm doing phenomenal. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good.
And then we have Lindsay Sheldon. Lindsay, how you doing?
I'm good. Enjoying the summer right now.
All right. Both of you are streamers. Have you guys been streaming anything recently? Acid, I know you've been streaming because I follow you, but Lindsay, have you streamed anything recently?
I've been working my way through the Mass Effect Legendary series. I'm probably going to jump into Andromeda next because I just finished. I didn't stream the last section of it because I got too absorbed and forgot to start the stream. Finished Mass Effect 3 earlier today. And I'm also starting my own podcast right now with a friend every other Sunday, Z and Cody's Monster Manual. And it's essentially just me and my friend we love horror movies and everything creepy and scary and paranormal. And it's us discussing horror movies and monsters and legends and myths and all of that fun stuff. So that's what I've been doing lately, really.
Yeah, definitely check that out if you're a big fan of the horror genre. Am I a big fan of the horror genre? I don't know. Acid, are you a big fan of a horror?
I mean, not really. I mean, I'll watch it, but I don't seek it out or anything like that. So, but yeah, I mean, I like the older stuff, I guess. Not so much the newer stuff, but yeah, again, I don't seek it out, but I'll watch it if it's there.
You'd probably agree with Cody. I think Cody likes a little bit more of like the old slasher movies and like 70s and 80s and stuff.
Yeah, like that kind of stuff. Like all this new age, like trying to make you piss yourself when you're in the movie theater. Like, no, I don't need all
We
that.
both have very interesting opinions about horror. We're not necessarily your stereotypical horror fans. We don't like everything by any means. But for me, it's usually about the monster and the story and kind of some of the cultural significance, because horror tells a lot about the people that make the horror, and that's what's
true.
always fascinating to me.
Like The Shining is my level of horror. Like I can get on board with that.
So you like the psychological horror a little bit more.
Yes, I prefer psychological horror. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, sounds fantastic. So definitely check out that podcast when you get that going. But the way we do the show is, and Lindsay, you're very familiar, been a frequent guest on the show, is we catch up first. We talk about things that are new with us, and I'll go ahead and begin. So as many of you know, I will be teaching my From Comics to the Screen class next semester. I'm really excited about that, and one thing that I'm going to be doing is requiring students get comicsology. So I got comicsology myself, and I've been kind of going through the comics. So I decided, I saw Sweet Tooth on there. I was like, you know what? I'm going to read a comic. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to just...
So
now,
wait,
of course,
hang on, back up. What is comicsology? What is that?
comicsology is the digital comic book database.
Ah, okay.
I believe
I didn't know
on
this.
the show before,
Did
but
we?
yeah. So
It must have went right over my bald head. Wow.
And
Yeah,
once
okay,
again,
cool.
I'm a comics traditionalist. I enjoy having the comics in my hand and flipping through it and everything and collecting them and everything. But I was like, you know what? I'm actually going to sit down. I'm going to read this comic. I used my tablet, which I think has a lot to do with how it actually was a pleasurable experience. I was worried that I wasn't going to enjoy it, but I actually got my tablet where you can actually flip through it almost very close to a comic book rather than on a PC, which I think that would be different. But I sat down on my couch and I was just reading Sweet Tooth. And by the way, Sweet Tooth is good.
Right.
Like it's really good. I don't know if you're familiar. I know the Netflix has the series. I haven't watched that yet. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to read this comic and I'm going to watch the series. And if I enjoy it, maybe I'll require my students to do the same. And we can kind of talk about that. So I started reading through Sweet Tooth, and man, I was really into it. Like it's really, really good. I enjoyed it. I think the visuals are interesting, but the story is phenomenal. And the way they introduce the story to you is great. Like they give you piece by piece by piece. Even at the end of the issue, I still don't know everything that's going on. So I just read the first issue, right, all the way through. Which I'm assuming that's the first season is going to be that. It's gonna follow the series or whatever, the first series or whatever. But it's really, really good. It seems really corny when you look at the cover of the kid with the antlers, right? I don't know. Lindsay, have you seen the show or read the comic?
I have not seen the show or read it. I know of it. It's been one of those things that's kind of like been on my read in the future lists as far as comic books go. I had a lot of friends that have watched the series and have adored the series. So, I mean, that's not necessarily surprising. Netflix usually pulls off decent adaptations in their series for the most part. But if you're saying that it's good, I might have to check it out. I've been absorbed in other things recently as far as comics go.
And the great thing about Sweet Tooth is, sometimes comics can be too, word heavy, right? And if you're someone like me who reads all the time and doesn't want to have to read something else on top of it, right? Being able to kind of just enjoy the visuals and it not being so crazy, right? So, for example, I also started reading The Dark Knight Returns, the comic by Frank Miller, and that's word heavy. And I just thought I can't get into it because I'm like, this is just too much reading. I read too much to have to read a comic.
Just turn it into a book, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Or novel.
Well, if you're teaching that class, let me ask, what do you think you're going off the top of your head, like 2 or 3 things that you really think you're going to have to include in that class?
So I'm probably going to do, I had a whole list of, so I'm probably going to do something like The Watchmen is probably one thing. So I'll have the series and the comic on there. I was going to do Snowpiercer, but Snowpiercer is not on Comixology, so I'm not going to do Snowpiercer. I'm probably going to do, because there's a lot of theories on adaptation that kind of fit into the Zack Snyder universe. Mm-hmm. So I might do something like Dark Knight Returns with Batman v Superman, and we could kind of talk about adaptation and that sort of thing. I had a whole list. I have a whole syllabus that I'm coming up. I'm completely blanking on everything. But it's a lot. It's a lot of comics. It's a lot of comics that I'm having. There's a lot of films to watch too. So it's one of those things.
Yeah, find the balance, right?
Into the Spider-Verse might be another good one. Oh, Black Panther. I'm going to do Black Panther 2 as well. So, because I'm also going to be talking about representation is going to be a big part of it as well. Right.
The Spider-Verse one would be really interesting if you want to talk about animation and the fact, like, that just the animation of that movie is so comic book in and of itself, a lot like Ang Lee's Hulk or whatever. It's so comic book that it's almost like a perfect adaptation in some ways of like what you could dream you can do, you can only do with animation. I teach that in several of my classes, so I guess I have some preference to Into the Spider-Verse as far as the comics book movies.
Yeah, I think Into the Spider-Verse is definitely going to be on there as well. I might do Matrix, just to kind of theories of like non-comic book adaptations that are basically a comic book movie, right? Because there's a lot of theories about that as well. You know this, Lindsay. You were in a...
And there's a lot of, you could even, if you'd go that route of like movies to comic books, because there's a lot of spin-off comic books that come out of film. As you're like, I guess, wrap up end of the semester random topics, a couple of weeks that most people tend to have.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, once again, I cannot stress this enough. Sweet Tooth is great. It looks really corny when you first look at it because it has the kids with the antlers, but it's really good and explains why he has antlers in a positive way, or in a way that kind of works. But yeah, there's my thing. Acid, what's new with you?
Oh gosh, the question is this week, what is not new with me? Because there's so much that's been going on. The big news, of course, is I'll have a teenager next week, and the birthday party is tomorrow. So it just makes you feel old when your child is a teenager.
And you're not even talking about your daughter. You're just having a teenager over at your house.
Just having one over, yep. Just complete stranger. Don't know who they are. No, but yes, my daughter's turning 13, and it's a monumental moment. It's a weird feeling. Like I felt weird when I turned 30, and then then this is happening, and I'm like, okay, this is getting even more weird. So. Like I'm all of a sudden like, you know what? I'm gonna blink my eyes and turn over, and I'm gonna be like a grandfather with, it's gonna be weird. But anyway, so that's going on this week. So Anthony, how you've always said this, that I am your favorite bus driver in the whole world. Yeah. Let me tell you how good I am. Okay, so as you know, bus drivers, they don't drive in the summer, right? So I'm sitting here minding my own business, playing a little video game, watching some Netflix on the side, and my boss calls me up. It's already been 3 weeks into the summer, maybe longer, when he calls me and he says, "Hey, bud, what are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm just chilling. You need me?" He goes, "No, I don't need you. I just wanted to see if you still wanted that promotion." And I was like, "Promotion? What are you talking about?" He goes, "Well, we need you to drive a special needs bus." So I was like, "Sure, I'll do that next year." So I have now been promoted to a special needs bus driver. So I'll get to do that next year, and I'm super excited about it. Just because I've never, that's always something that I've kind of been interested in anyway, not bus driver, but just working with special needs kids. And now I get a chance to do it. So yeah, that's exciting.
All right. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. But yeah, other than that, gaming wise, been streaming usual stuff, Hearthstone. I did pick up Cyberpunk again, because a new patch came out last week. Just to see if it had gotten any better. It has not, by the way. It is still the same. It's unfortunate, too, because it has so much potential. They need about a 50 gig patch, and that would probably almost fix it.
That's so sad. I desperately wanted to play that game until it came out. Everybody was talking about how bad it is, and
the thing that makes it bad, like the game itself is so good. Like the mechanics of it are great. The open worldness of it is great. The immersion is so great, but the glitches, oh my God. Like you are in it, like say you're in it, and sometimes you won't see it for an hour. So you get on, you're all immersed in it, and you're doing your thing. You're like, oh yeah, let's do this and this. And then all of a sudden, boom, something just out of left field shows up, glitch wise, and completely demolishes your immersion, and you're like, man, you know what? Screw this game.
So is
I'm
it
done.
at this point immersion issues or game breaking issues?
They fixed a lot of the like hacks and stuff that you can do, like infinite money hacks and that kind of stuff. Like there's still a few of them in there, but they're really like I follow that kind of stuff. They're really difficult to do and just not really worth it at this point. Like once they fix that, it'll be fun. But this is, for me anyway, it's more of an immersion issue because I'll just be driving down the road or whatever, and all of a sudden my car will explode just out of nowhere. Just like what? Like I didn't hit anybody, you know? Or I'll be standing in the road or cross like because I'm immersed in it, so I'll look both ways before I cross the street because I don't want to get hit by a car. So and then I just go. There's nobody in the road because I had to turn the population down to as low as it would go just so I don't have these issues. I mean, like a desert road, right? Walk across the street, boom, just get nailed by a car, and there's nobody there. You stand up, there's no car. You just get knocked over. So it's that kind of stuff. It just, it's aggravating.
It's so sad.
It is, because the game itself is, if it didn't have any of that, it would be game of the year. Easy.
All right, well, there he goes. Acid is still disappointed with Cyberpunk. He's got a new promotion. We're all very proud of you.
Stuff. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Acid, well, you were one of my very first streams of my own. You were a viewer of that.
That's
So
true.
thank you so much for. I streamed one of my Madden games against one of my
I did.
opponents in my
I
league.
checked him out. I was making fun of him. I was telling whoever was playing you to make sure that you lost.
And what happened, Acid? What happened?
You demolished him.
I demolished him like
Demolished
I do. All right, good. All right, Lindsay, what's new with you?
I've really just mostly been enjoying the summer. Not having classes, not having a whole bunch of research, just getting through some reading and stuff. Finally had the chance to just binge through the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, which is so not good for my time management. Because I love BioWare games, and Mass Effect Trilogy is one of the best trilogies of games out there. And so I essentially, for the past week and a half, have been playing it nonstop. And I'm about to go into another game. Other than that, I've just been diving into a lot of tabletop stuff while I have the time. Still doing D&D every Tuesday. We now have almost every weekend there's going to be something of some sort. Come July, because we have my Star Wars campaign I've been running for a while. Once a month, a new werewolf game from the World of Darkness series once a month, and also starting to have another Star Wars campaign that I'm running in a different time period. So if anybody's a Star Wars nerd that wants to learn a lot more about Star Wars Legends at this point, since Disney made everything non-canon, they'll learn a lot from my series because I end up going back into the Old Republic with everything, because that is a much more fascinating period in my opinion. Because hot take, I kind of despise the Star Wars movies periods at this point, because it just is a giant pissing match between two families. When they resolved it that way after 9 movies, where it's just Palpatines and Skywalkers the entire 9 movies, not a huge fan of that time period anymore. Still love the actors and the characters, but
people were very a big fan of the last movie.
Yeah, the last movie had a lot of potential for as much hate as 8 got. They were moving it in a direction where it would be fresh and new, and they'd have a lot of room to play. And then 9 came out, and we decided to do a big course correct because everybody hated 8, and go 180 degrees back to exactly where we were already, and it just fucked it all up, in my opinion. Which I'm sure there'll be people out there that will yell and scream because they love the movies, and you must protect Skywalkers and Palpatines with everything that you have. But no, not my favorite. So that's mostly what I have been doing lately. Other than that, like, only other new stuff is I'm trying to get myself like a little porch garden going. did not have a porch when I lived out in Kansas. Now I have a porch since I've been in Georgia, and it's been vastly underused other than my giant butterfly bush. So I'm trying to get like herbs and vegetables and stuff like that. We'll see how successful I am.
All right, very good. Lindsay's taking care of her little porch garden, right? Enjoying
Hang
some
on. Now,
Star
you said
Wars.
you love all BioWare games.
Yes.
Does this include Anthem?
No.
Okay.
I say I was one of those people that was really hyped to see what Anthem could be.
Kind of like how we all thought Cyberpunk was going to be.
Yeah, because
Anthem was just a complete pile of garbage.
It's from BioWare, and I still adore BioWare. I blame Anthem on EA.
Oh, kind of like I blame World of Warcraft on Activision. Okay.
Yeah.
I got you. Right.
Because there was multiplayer stuff in their games, but before Anthem, it was an RPG company. And then we're like, okay, now we have to have multiplayer games because EA is going through that phase of everything must be multiplayer.
No, everything has to be monetized.
Then we have Jedi: The Fallen Order that comes out, and they're like, oh, we can still make money off of single player games. Now we're going to course correct back to single player like we told you 6 years ago. But yeah, there was a lot of potential for Anthem. Anthem is a gorgeous game.
Yes, it is.
It is a gorgeous game, and I think a lot of BioWare stuff are gorgeous games, like naturally. Even Andromeda, when it came out and there was a whole bunch of issues, beautiful. So if you're somebody that goes to play games just to look and enjoy the scenery and stuff, gorgeous. But yeah, no, Anthem is something I really don't even necessarily associate with BioWare anymore. I'm a BioWare apologist. We'll see what happens in the next BioWare games to come out, because they have announced they're working on the next Dragon Age. They've announced a teaser for another Mass Effect game that's going back to the Shepard saga, it seems. The teaser seems to be taking place with Liara, so one of the companions from the original series trilogy. So we'll see if them going back to their RPG roots will save the company, will bring them back to like what they are good at. But yeah, no, Anthem is EA's own like bastard child that we just ignored its existence at this point, I think, for a lot of BioWare fans.
Yeah, that's fair.
Which is unfortunate, because there was a lot of time and effort put into it.
All right, very good. All right, let's go ahead and get to our topic for today. All right, so today is the top female comic book characters. And Lindsay, off air, you said you have a lot of opinions on this. Perfect. I like it. So we're going to do top female characters, and I will go ahead and begin with mine. Now, I'm allowed to have one hipster answer, and Jeremy's not here to make fun of me for this hipster answer, okay? But my top female comic book character is the character called Candy. This character was developed in the 1930s through the 1950s. She was the very first African-American comic book character developed by an African-American artist, right? Oh. So, like I said before, 1930s, 1950s, the character often dealt with sort of being a black woman in a white man field, right? So there's a lot of humor depicting like her relationship around in this particular environment, but very progressive, very transgressive type of character. But I highly recommend it because of course, most comic book characters we know are from Marvel and DC, but definitely if you're a big comic book fan and you want to know about comic book history, definitely check out the artist Jackie Ormus. Jackie Ormus is the name of the artist. Her character Candy. Definitely check that out. I believe it was published in the Chicago Defender or some sort of Chicago magazine, but definitely check that out. All right, there's my number one answer. Acid, what do you have?
Okay, so I had, of course, I'm more the video game guy, so my knowledge of comic book characters kind of are limited to Marvel and DC. But I did stick with a all villain theme for myself. So my number one is Poison Ivy from the Batman series, just out of character. I did all these like through character uniqueness. I can appreciate the, I guess you could call it hipster powers, with all the plant life. But It's just, to me, that kind of spoke to me. Like, she doesn't have, like, laser beams coming out of her eyes. She, controls plant life, which is kind of, it's just like it was something different when she came on the scene. And I could appreciate that about her. So, yeah, my number 3 is Poison Ivy.
All right, there you go, Poison Ivy. Lindsay, what's your number 3?
Well, I can't get to number 3. I have to get to some honorable mentions.
Of course.
Because I cheat every time I come on this show and mention a whole bunch of stuff. But it's also because, again, most people, when they're talking about comic books, especially if you're a female talking about comic books, you have a very limited range of knowledge to start off with. Because comic books are still, to this day, the male thing. Girls don't get to do it. I was not even allowed to have comic books for a long time growing up. So all of my exposure was when I was young through like TV shows and movies. So like Justice League and, any of the DC, animated movies and stuff. So it's a lot of those female characters are the ones that people know and I have really deep attachment to. So like, for instance, like some of my honorable mentions are like the X-Men ladies. So especially some of like the more off the wall rare ones at this point, like Dust and Jubilee, are some of my favorites.
Marrow.
Yeah, like I think the ladies of the X-Men are some of the better female characters out of Marvel. A lot of the standalone female characters have other issues. And of course, like Wonder Woman, Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn, they're all really high up the list and really like favorites. And I think my DC Marvel favorite of all time is Zatanna, because she's the one that I actually, when I was able to finally go and look at comic books myself and get them from the library and everything, she's the first one I was able to explore. Other honorable mentions, because my top 3 are actually ones that are not DC and Marvel, because I want to like point out there's a lot of other things other than DC and Marvel out there, and a lot more of them are female centric and female written than DC and Marvel. But another one that is a near and dear, I will go ahead and say that this is a very adult comic book. Children don't read this, okay? It's actually one of the top 10 most banned and challenged books in the United States because of sexual content, is Sex Criminals. It is a series essentially about, and I'm going to try to say this vaguely so you don't get in trouble. During sex, some people are able to freeze time when certain moments hit. And then it's their shenanigans when that happens. And Susie, the main character of that, is actually a really fascinating character, especially considering the premise of the book and everything. A lot of things get explored. Another kind of favorite is also Bitch Planet, which is another very adult comic book series written in part by Matt Fraction. And essentially all of it's a completely female-centric comic book series, and it's beautiful, gorgeous. All of the characters are unique and interesting and well written. But I think my number 3, number 3.
Here we go.
Told you, I have a lot to say about this.
Go for it.
I think my actual number 3, let me double check, is Faith Herbert, which comes out of the Valiant comics. So this is another superhero comics. Faith Herbert is actually a female superhero. Her superhero name is Zephyr, and she is a fat woman who's also a nerd, who read comic books, was into science fiction, had like fan sites about Joss Whedon. Of course, this was written before Joss Whedon started getting in trouble. And she ends up becoming a superhero. And it's just a really interesting character that's in a lot of ways not characters that you see, because I'm imagining a lot of the characters you guys are going to cite, not calling you guys out, but a lot of the characters you guys are going to cite are more conventionally attractive, written through the male gaze characters, because that's what we have. and she's not.
Why would you assume that?
This industry is a fun one. But because of how she's written, she's still written by a dude. She's made by Jim Shooter, I believe. But it's, for somebody who is not your conventional comic book reader, it's always nice to find somebody who's outside of the normal, lines of conventionally attractive men and women superheroes. So when you find a queer superhero, when you find a superhero of color, or a superhero who's not conventionally attractive, it does a lot for the reader. It opens a lot of doors and makes them connect in different ways. And I think Faith Herbert is one of those characters people can.
All right, fantastic. I like it. Faith Herbert. Definitely check that out. All right, so let's go ahead and get to my number 2. And I feel weird saying this because of what Lindsay was talking about. But my number 2 is Wonder Woman, okay? Yes, I get it. Now, here's the thing. A comic book version of Wonder Woman, there's a variety of different interpretations of Wonder Woman. There's been periods where Wonder Woman's more of a feminist character, and obviously there's periods where she's definitely more of a reactionary, kind of like your typical, I have a lasso and I'm going to make men tell the truth to me, because that's the one thing that women need the most, is for men to speak the truth to them. Anyways, so yeah. But yeah.
Through the method of bondage.
Yes.
Right, exactly.
Tape out my whip real quick.
But I've always enjoyed the representation of Wonder Woman as sort of like the muscular Amazonian character, right? Obviously, it's not completely transgressive because she's still wearing very little clothes, but at least the muscular version is kind of at least challenging the stereotype of the thin, traditionally attractive character, right? So you're sort of, I actually have a comic book cover right here where she's lifting Superman over her head, but yeah. So yeah, I definitely want to go with Wonder Woman. Obviously, there's different interpretations of Wonder Woman. Sometimes she can.
Is there a run that sticks, like a run of Wonder Woman that you like sticks out in your head, or a version of her that sticks out in your head?
The comic book I have is by Neil Adams. I enjoy a lot of Neil Adams artwork. Obviously the very beginning of Wonder Woman, you could say she's a little more, your traditional female character, but there was a time where she was a little more of a feminist character. But yeah, so definitely, that's why I think I was so disappointed. Although I do like Gal Gadot, I was very disappointed when they cast a very skinny, supermodel like actress to play Wonder Woman, because it feels like we do need something to kind of get away from that. Yeah.
That's why I think one of the more interesting conversations that happened around those movies when they came out, especially with the first one that came out, other than just a female superhero, movie in and of itself, was not so much about Wonder Woman herself, about Gal Gadot. It was about the background Amazonians, about all of them being athletes, being like actual Olympians and weightlifters and bodybuilders and stuff. And when you pay more attention to the Amazons in the background, a lot of times they actually fit some of the more Amazonian-esque versions of Wonder Woman than Gal Gadot does. And it's just an interesting thing to watch in those movies. And I think that's why a lot of people do appreciate those movies, is because some of the stuff that's happening outside of the foreground, outside of your main characters.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's why people did enjoy the first one, right? Because it did depict a lot of strong, like physically strong, outright women versus like the traditionally skinny, right? Whatever, preoccupied with weight and that sort of thing. We won't even talk about the second Wonder Woman because we don't even need to get into that. But yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. But I think it would have been far more powerful if they went with another actress, an actress who had a little more meat on her bones, if I can say that, a little more muscle, because then it paired with the other Amazonians, right? I think that would have been a little more powerful.
Try to grab one of the female MMA fighters that are trying to like break into acting all of a sudden and put them in there. that would be a little bit more of the body build that I think people would have appreciated for Wonder Woman. But they wanted the pretty one that was really tall. That's really the only standards they had.
The problem is none of the other ones could act. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that might be a concern as well. All right, Acid, what's your number 2?
My number 2, again, going off Lindsay's comment earlier, this person can be anyone. So I went with Mystique. So Mystique being unique as in can change shape, change into, whatever the need may fit at the time. Which is really cool just from the stealthy point of view, at least in my mind, because I like a good stealthy game, so Mystique kind of just speaks to me as far as her ability to blend in and to do what she needs to do without being noticed. I've seen so many depictions of her, like from comics to movies to, there's just so many different versions. Like you were saying with Wonder Woman, that I don't know which one I would, pick as my favorite. All of them seem to be kind of in the same form, but some less blue than others, I guess. So I guess I would prefer the less blue ones. The less blue versions. I wasn't a huge fan of movie Mystique, but comic book Mystique was more my speed. But I did appreciate the technology in the movies to be able to see it happen, and that was really cool. So yeah, Mystique number 2.
All right, very good. Lindsay, what's your number 2?
So continuing with the non-DC and non-Marvel, I think my number 2 is Alana from the series Saga. And Saga is just a really good, kind of high fantasy sci-fi mix in some ways. A story of kind of a Romeo and Juliet stories in some ways, of two people from opposing worlds, races, coming together, realizing they love each other and trying to deal with that. Alana is the main female protagonist in the Saga, and she is a badass. There's no other way to explain or to even try to describe her. She goes through a lot of trials and tribulations while being pregnant. A lot of her story development is about her being a mother and being a wife and a lover, and being kind of the strong one in the relationship for that. So she's given a lot of depth that you don't get to see in female characters all the time, especially in comic books, and relating it back not to, she's a superhero or a supervillain or some really mystical grand thing about her. No, she is drawing her powers and her ability to handle stuff from the fact that she has to, because it's her family. And that's, even mothers and fathers, you don't get that very often, where it's really truly going back to you can do a lot of stuff if your kid or your spouse is in trouble, and that they're not given enough credit. So I think Alana is one of the really well written characters in a really good series just by itself.
All right, very good. Yeah, so I had to Google Alana real quick to see what you were talking about, and I recognize the character. Actually, this is an ad that pops up on Comixology for this particular comic. But I definitely need to check this one out. I looked online, that a lot of people are making comparisons between her and Valkyrie, like the actual MCU version of Valkyrie. I wonder if that kind of...
I think it's because a lot of people fan cast that actress as Alana in some ways, which is true. She should play Alana if she has a chance. But Saga is one of those that every time I have walked into a comic book store, it's one of the actual comic books that's being featured. It's on the front of the shelves and stuff, but because it's on the shelf beside all of the giant superhero section, people tend to ignore it. But it is one of the better modern comic books that's just a really good story to follow through. You know, there's some comic books nowadays that's like a run of the comic book is good, or there's an issue that's good. I would vouch for pretty much the entire Saga series.
All right, very good. I definitely need to check another comic that I need to read. I definitely want to do that. All right, so let's go ahead and get to my number one. My number one is very similar to Wonder Woman in a lot of ways, but she's an MCU version of Wonder Woman, in my opinion, and that would be She-Hulk. So what I enjoyed about She-Hulk was, and yes, once again, just like Wonder Woman, there are different illustrations of She-Hulk. Sometimes she's more muscular. Sometimes the artist is way too afraid to make her muscular, right, and trying to make her skinny. And of course, they always use the fact that when she turns into She-Hulk to to rip her clothes and show very little. They always use that as an excuse. But I always enjoyed She-Hulk for a couple of reasons. The main reason is that she's very intelligent, right? So she's a scientist, but unlike Bruce Banner, when she turns into She-Hulk, she maintains her intelligence, right? So I always found that kind of interesting. I always enjoyed the representations of She-Hulk where she was a little more muscular, right? Because just like I said before, I like the idea of sort of like challenging the stereotype of what a female comic book character should be. And of course, almost every male artist is going to draw her with big breasts, right? That's just the go-to. I really wish one would just kind of just do normal body, but muscular when she turns into She-Hulk, which I definitely see that being an issue.
Some of the best. I don't know. Have you heard of the Hawkeye Project?
I have heard of the Hawkeye Project, yes.
For those of you that are not aware what the Hawkeye Project is, it started on Tumblr, I believe, many years ago at this point, of fan artists, when they got tired of seeing the positions of all of the female superheroes that are usually impossible to even be in. So one of the more famous ones is the standalone poster of Black Widow from the Avengers, the first Avengers, where you have to see both her tits and her ass at the same time, all the time. They decided they were going to take the character Hawkeye and start drawing Hawkeye in these female positions. There's a lot of them from She-Hulk that has Hawkeye drawn as She-Hulk. And it's absolutely hilarious. It's one of the most, if you're not aware of what that is, you've never heard of it before, go look it up. It's probably the most entertaining time you can have with this type of stuff. But my question for you, Anthony, is, are you looking forward to the She-Hulk TV series, or are you concerned?
I'm looking forward to it. We'll see. Once again, another actress, like another skinny actress. But this is a little bit different because with CGI, you could make her muscular when she turns into She-Hulk. So we could potentially avoid that. But of course, I'm a big fan of She-Hulk. One of my favorite Marvel characters. So I'm definitely looking forward to that series. But yeah, excellent. Very good. All right, so that was my number one. Acid, what's your number one?
All right, my number one. She is probably my favorite just comic book, movie, TV show villain of all time. And that's Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn. I have not met a Harley Quinn version that I didn't like, from the cartoony ones all the way to just super serious Harley Quinn. Like even video game Harley Quinn is really cool. And everybody's, oh, it's the looks. Well, that's part of it, but the attitude that she has and that she portrays in everything, it's that bubbly. What am I trying to say? It's I don't know, this bubbly, loyal with stupidity. I mean, I don't understand what she is trying to put forward, but whatever it is, at least in my mind, it's working. Just look at the relationship she had with Joker. I mean, just that kind of stuff is just like, are you really? This is where we're going with this? Okay, we're good. This is okay. But I just really, really enjoyed, and at least in everything that I've seen her in or read about, I've enjoyed so far. So that's my ultimate number one.
Very good. Another good one. I didn't even. It's so funny. I didn't even think about Harley Quinn. When I was thinking about all these comic book characters, I didn't even think about Harley Quinn. I don't know if it has something to do with the fact that she began on the animated series first and then she became a comic book character, but that doesn't count. I mean, that's totally fine. But yeah, Lindsay, what's your number 3 or your number 1 or what?
So my number 1 is kind of again me cheating at this. It is essentially I want to just say the Rat Queens. The Rat Queens is another comic book series. It is essentially a D&D campaign that has turned into a comic book series. That's the best way to describe it. And it's 4 female lead characters that are all, there's like an elven mage and a dwarvish warrior and a cleric, but the cleric's god is essentially Cthulhu. And it's just this really weird, kind of crass, off the wall comic book series. It started off, if I'm not mistaken, as a Kickstarter. So it was fan funded the very first run. Now it's getting this kind of soft reboot to turn it into like a proper long series. But every single one of these characters is unique, is interesting, is weird. So I think one of them is described as like a rockabilly necromancer. So it's just this really strange mix of things, especially if you're somebody that enjoys D&D or enjoys high fantasy type stuff. It is a really fun thing to just dive into. And most of the series focuses on these female characters and their relationships to one another, their relationships to the people around them. And a lot of times the story itself, whatever their campaign is, whatever their adventure is secondary. So they're getting a lot more exploration, a lot more, chance to engage and evolve and change. We actually see some of these characters have significant character growth over just a couple of volumes, which is to me refreshing coming off of superhero stuff, because superheroes very rarely change, where they change for a series and then have to be restarted back to the beginning. And so that's why I think I like a lot of my favorite characters from comic books tend to not be DC and Marvel, because they're allowed to change and grow and be different over time, where your superheroes are perpetually trapped in their archetype, unfortunately, even if there's really interesting runs. So I would say the Rat Queens overall. I think if I had to pick one out of them, it's Violet, who is the Dwarven fighter. And her story is really involved with, she's a female dwarf, and in most high fantasy, female dwarfs have a weird place in society. And it's her having to deal with that and come into her own and deal with family and tradition and all that type of stuff. And she has a really nice, well put together, well handled character growth around those issues. So again, a little bit more on the adult side. Not as adult as sex criminals, but on the more adult side, if you are, 18 plus, read Rat Queens. But they have to be in my number 1. They're just fun. The other ones had a little bit more philosophical bent to them. These are just fun.
All right, perfect. I like it, right? So 3 comic books that I have never heard of before, introduced by Lindsay, but definitely something to check out there. I like it. All right, there we go. There's our list of our top female comic book. What do you think? Post a comment. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and get to our final segment here, Acid Trivia. Let's wrap this thing up with some trivia.
Okay. Yeah, let me go ahead and grab yourselves a Post-it note or a sheet.
By the way, Acid, how many people are watching? 0?
We have 4 right now, actually.
4 people. Have they been commenting at all?
We have a Cody.
Cody, that's Z and Cody, I'm sure. Hi, Cody.
There's Cody. Cody's the only one that said anything.
What did Cody say?
He said yes. I'm sure he was talking about Z when she mentioned the Rat Queens.
All right, perfect, excellent.
That's about when it came in.
Thank you so much for watching, Cody. What do you think, Cody? What female comic book character do you like?
All right.
I love that I pulled out this notebook for this, and it's legitimately the sheet that it's still on is the last time I was here for Jeopardy.
Perfect.
All right. Let's see.
I think originally did we ever do worst comic book characters? Have we done that yet?
Worst.
Have we done worst comic book characters? I can't remember. Maybe we didn't doing that.
I can't be on that one because I'm gonna really piss off Adam.
Harley Quinn.
Harley Quinn's on there. That's weird. Why is this not
Controversy.
I love certain versions of Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn as a whole, I have many issues with.
What about the movie version? You like the movie version?
There we go.
I actually really like the Birds of Prey.
Oh, Cody says Harley Quinn.
Ooh.
Yeah, he would say Harley Quinn.
Maybe he was yesing to my Harley Quinn.
No, I love Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. I think she owns the kind of spirit of Harley Quinn. I love Birds of Prey. I only like Harley Quinn when she gets away from Joker. Because when she is with Joker, as fun as the character is at times, it is too Stockholm syndrome-y. It is too abusive relationship. And part of my issue is less about the character, I will admit, more about how people view her and Joker as this is the relationship that I want. No, you don't, because that's all about a really abusive, toxic relationship. That's the entire point. And a lot of people miss that when they kind of put Joker and Harley Quinn on a pedestal. And it's as a woman, and I won't say this as all women see it this way. There are many women that really enjoy Harley Quinn, but as a woman myself, to me, it is not necessarily something that is I think is necessarily appropriate, and it's been shed, like too much attention has been paid to it, and it's not been delved into until you get to the Harley Quinn standalone series where Harley's actually saying, nah, it was really fucked up. And then people dismiss that or don't pay attention to the Harley Quinn series because it's not Batman, it's not Joker, it's not, the main series.
The Harley Quinn story in Injustice 2, like her part in Injustice 2 was awesome. Like it was the getting away from Joker stuff. And it was really cool just because, I mean it's a fighting game. So
a lot of the Injustice stories I actually end up liking more than like the main comic book
NetherRealm, as good as they do in fighting games, I mean, their storytelling is, even the Mortal Kombat stories that they put in their games are just like, I would just sit there and watch. Like that should have been the Mortal Kombat movie. Just let NetherRealm take care of it. Don't don't let anybody else have their hand in it. NetherRealm's got this, but
yeah. So like anytime you have Harley away from Joker and Harley is like being really real about what that relationship was like, I think it's good. So like I even like the new Harley Quinn animated series that they have now where they're kind of setting her up with like Poison Ivy and everything.
Yeah, I saw
that's
some pictures.
Fun. That's good, but so much of her history is with Joker as a side piece in a toxic relationship, and it makes my attachment to her really strained. So she's one of my least favorite characters because of that, unfortunately.
All right, makes perfect sense. All right, Acid,
All right,
what is our first question?
All right, your first question is how many franchises, and we're gonna say because it just says franchises, it doesn't say games, movie, it doesn't say anything. But we'll stick with our comic book theme. So, how many comic book franchises in which animals appear in space?
Animals appear in space.
In space. I thought that was interesting.
I have many questions.
Cody says King Shark in the Harley Quinn animated series gives me life.
Oh, Cody, no.
Oh, and Mark Hamill in the chat says, "Where's Jeremy? We missed him."
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Mark. he had to go stock his used mattress store.
Okay, question: is it like only comic books, or can it be like spin-off comic books?
We'll do. I mean, we'll widen the range. We can do some spin-offs. That's fine.
Okay.
And if you're having issues thinking of some, we can divulge into cinema as well.
I got one.
But we'll keep it comic-y themed. How about that?
I have one.
No, Anthony has one. A whole one.
Trying to think of another one.
Animals that appear in space.
I don't know if this was in space or if this was just a weird planet that I'm thinking of.
Okay. Lindsay, do you have two?
Maybe.
Okay, we'll start with Anthony's one. And
I just said
see-
Howard the Duck. Howard the Duck had to have gone to space.
Howard the Duck? Why have I not heard of this?
Oh my god.
Howard
That just
the
makes me
Duck.
think of that really horrible Howard the Duck movie.
Oh my. Well, yeah. You're right. I'll take it.
That's one of those like fever dream like 80s
This is
movies.
very 86. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. You can actually
And he
watch
made a random
for free.
appearance in like a after credits scene in the Guardians of the Galaxy.
He was also in Endgame because he was fighting along with everybody.
Wow.
You can,
Mhm.
Incredible.
Did Howard the Duck come from space?
Yes.
The cover of this artwork is him popping out of an egg, but he is in space.
Yeah, I think
So,
he's an alien.
I'll get that. That's weird.
This
okay,
is
so
the
what
thing
are
that I'm
your
trying to
what are
think
your
of.
two?
Cosmo, the
Lindsay?
dog Cosmo. That's what I was trying to think of. Cosmo the dog.
Cosmo.
Well, I was thinking of like Superman because I don't know if Crypto is a space dog or if he is a human dog. I think it depends on the version of Crypto we talk about. And the other one, I don't know if it's in space. It's Battle Pug. So
Battle Pug.
Battle.
it
Pug.
is
Never heard of this.
a more recent obsession of mine, and it is 100% just like a weird kind of crackhead comic that has been released recently.
Oh, wow.
It's essentially a giant pug
It
that
is a
somebody is
giant
using
pug.
as a war mount.
That's amazing.
And I don't know if it's technically, I don't remember if it's set in space or if it's in just a weird fantasy world. Because to be honest, that's the comic book I go to read when I'm drunk. So
The description
I don't
is
remember.
wastes of space, so I'll take it.
Yeah, if you want just
I'll take
weird
it.
off the wall comic book that's just not horrible, but it's just weird,
Okay.
Battle Pug is what you should go to right now.
Battle.
There you go, another comic book
Amazing.
recommendation.
All right. Well, Lindsay takes the round.
All right,
Battle Pug.
with Battle Pug
Battle Pug. Okay. Now we're going to films.
films.
This ought to be a little easier. Okay, so name how many films can you name?
Oh, okay.
Just kidding. How many films can you name in which a giant appears? A giant. Giant. Like humongously.
We're talking about
size.
pure film, right?
Pure film. Pure film. And not the film that is around your bathtub when you haven't cleaned it in 6 years. Not that kind of film.
In which a giant
A
appears.
giant. And not a giant peach, but a giant.
What giant? I mean, I'm sure there's tons.
There are tons, yeah. Just how many can you name? I'm going to give y'all another minute to think about it while me and Cody shoot up the stuff. What's up, Cody? How you doing, buddy? Should I just agree with everything you say? Is that what's happening right now?
No, because I don't agree with half the stuff
You
he
can-
says. He knows it.
I should just agree with Cody
There's got
all the time.
Why I keep thinking of TV series?
Films, please. Keep it to films.
Do they have to technically be a giant or just giant things?
A giant living, walking around, like not James.
Humanoids?
Humanoids, yes, humanoid-y
Okay.
type stuff. Yeah, not a like no dragons. Dragons are giant.
Godzilla.
That doesn't count. Yeah, no. We'll go with humanoids. No giant turtles. You know. Okay. All right. Who can name two films, giants?
I
I can-
can.
I can do 2.
Two. All right. Who can do? Let's go to 4. Who can do 4?
I can do 4.
Okay.
I
Lindsay,
can do 3.
You can do that. Okay. All right. Well, let's go with Anthony's 4. See if he can win this round.
Captain America: Civil War,
Name the giant.
Giant Man,
Okay.
right? Chronicles of Narnia. There's got to be a giant in Chronicles of Narnia.
Is there?
I
a
don't
giant
think
in
so.
Chronicles of Narnia.
There's
don't
got to
think
be a giant in the Chronicles of Narnia. In the battle scene, there's got to be.
Hang on. Let me.
Google that.
I've watched that a lot. I don't remember any giant.
The Iron Giant.
Oh, you're right. There is one. It is
Only
Rumble Buffin.
Oh,
This
yeah.
guy's name. Of the Buffin giant family. So yes, you get one.
Got to be a giant. Okay.
Okay.
So and then Iron Giant.
Okay, that's fair.
How many do I? How many is that
That's
so far?
3. You need one more to
And
hit
the
your
Princess
4.
Bride, Andre the Giant.
No,
No.
that's not. No, that's just clever. That's not.
That counts. And then there was a movie that I was
With a
hoping.
giant in it? Yeah, you're right. There was.
I was
Name
hoping.
that film.
It's like it's the name of the movie is just letters. It's like the GB, GMB. It's like it's the Steven Spielberg movie.
BFG, Big Friendly Giant.
Oh,
That's
the
one of
big
the ones I
friendly
had.
giant.
BFG. James and the Giant Peach. Is it James or George?
The peach is giant. Not
It's James and the Giant Peach, but only the peach is giant.
Yeah.
Okay, so I only have 3.
Yeah.
All right,
Uh,
Lindsay. Let's hear your 3.
My 3 were the BFG.
Okay.
There's like an early 2000s, I want to say, Jack and the Beanstalk movie that I watched
There's a
several
giant.
times over.
There's a giant in that. Yeah.
And technically, It Chapter 2 has it turning into a giant at one point.
That's fair. Okay. I'm actually shocked no one said the never-ending story.
Oh yeah, there is a giant in the Neverending Story.
Yeah.
I have issues with Never Ending Story. Apparently,
I
it
can't
scared me
pronounce
as a
this
child. So
Giant's name, but it's in there. It's that big rock giant guy, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Is it when the
That movie
horse
as a kid.
dies?
No, and it's the funniest thing. My mom says apparently I was scared of wolves and werewolves when I was a child.
Oh, and the
So,
wolf in that
the
movie.
wolf
With the
terrified
eyes
me.
coming out of the darkness.
And like I couldn't even I love Scooby Doo, but the only episode of Scooby Doo I couldn't watch was the werewolf one. But what's ironic now is werewolf is one of my favorite monsters now. So I guess it just proves that like what you're traumatized by as a child becomes one of your fascinations as an adult. But yeah, I have only watched Neverending Story twice. Once when I was a child, I didn't get all the way through, and then once when I was a little bit older, but by that point I was bored. So
I enjoyed the never-ending story as a kid. When I was in daycare, I remember this. There were 3 things that I remember watching over and over and over again in daycare. Because, like, you know, you go through daycare, and of course this was like during the summer when I was there all day and my mom was working. But, you know, you go out, you have your lunch. Well, after lunch, it was like TV time or whatever you want to call it. And we would watch either Pippi Longstockings, Full House, or The Never-Ending Story. Like, it was in that order, and every day it would just rotate. And we watched that. I can't tell you how many times I watched that movie. Like, I remember I loved it.
I
It
need
was
to
so
go
good.
back and actually watch it because I know so many cultural things tie back to Neverending Story.
Yeah.
Like the only thing I remember about Neverending Story, other than the dog, like the wind dog, whatever, is
Yeah.
really wanting the book because it was that reversible
Oh, it
book
was
where
so cool. Yeah.
and I'm like, I want all books to be written like that. That's cool, but then they don't exist. And I was really sad when I realized they don't exist. There's like legitimately the only 2 things other than Scary Wolf I remember from Neverending Story.
All right, we'll call that one a tie. Although I should have won with Andre the Giant.
You should-
No.
All right, next one.
All right, so this one winner take all because it's time.
Okay.
Okay, how many video games can you name in which we're going with the female theme in which a princess character appears? Must be a princess. Princess. Wahoo! That was your clue. It's a me, princess.
I mean, there's gotta be
There's several.
every
I mean,
a
there's-
video game where a princess.
Yeah, video games with a princess. And can we go ahead and just nick all the video games that were made after movies, please?
Okay.
No,
So based off the movie.
yeah, like I'm talking original video game, like did not come from something else. So no, like, oh, it's Moana. That's or whatever. Moana the video game, or Beauty and the Beast the video game. Like, let's nix those.
I'm assuming you're not gonna let us just list every video game within a particular franchise.
No, you may not. Numbers don't count. So I know what you're trying. I know you too well. It's Mr. Stallion.
They call me Stallion.
I want you to introduce yourself to your students like that next year.
Hey,
And record
hey
it
guys.
so we can see it. Okay.
So I only have 3 because you're not letting
Okay.
me.
Yeah. All right. So Lindsay, can you do 4?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Can you up it to 5, Anthony? Do you think you can do 5?
No,
All right.
unless you
well,
let me do Mario Party and Mario Kart.
No. All right, Lindsay, let's hear it.
Well, the first one out, they could count as 2, they could count as 1, is the Mario and then Smash Brothers, because Princess Peach appears in both, but they're kind of 2 separate franchises.
It's the it's the same princess though. So we'll
Then Legend of Zelda.
Okay.
Fable has a princess in it.
Yep.
This one's another question, but it's technically its own thing. It's Kingdom Hearts, which has all the Disney princesses in it, so they're Disney, but it's a standalone series.
It is a standalone series. I'll give you that one.
And then Assassin's Creed has princesses in it.
Okay.
Several of the
Lindsay's- I think Lindsay's won the game. I mean, just
Yeah.
blew you. I mean, just like demolished you. Okay.
I also had Kingdom
Like you
Hearts.
demolish your opponents in Madden. She demolished you.
Oh
in,
man,
in
that's-
trivia. Yeah.
now I know how they feel.
Now you
when
know
I
how they
beat them
feel.
so badly.
I would have also accepted Marley from Chrono Trigger, Princess Katana from Mortal Kombat,
Oh yeah.
and then, of course, the original princess in Kingdom Hearts, Kairi. Kairi, yeah. So there you go. Congratulations.
All right, very good. Congratulations, Lindsay, on winning trivia.
There you
All right,
You win the lifetime supply of Twizzlers and autographed Asgard shirt from Anthony himself. So
And of course, you also get Acid's ball soap.
the lifetime supply of balls,
No,
which I need to order
Bringing-
some. I'm almost out.
Bringing back that old chestnut. Anyways,
I'm
all
almost out
right,
of
so
balls.
good. That's our show for today. Top
It is.
3 or top female comic book characters. Don't forget to post. What do you think? Write a comment below and subscribe. I don't know.
Click
yeah, so
that
good.
bell. Click that subscribe button.
Yeah, don't forget to click
on
that
over
bell.
to
That way you can always
twitch.tv.
listen. Hey, I'm trying
Y'all
to
are
do-
just sellouts
no.
at this
We're
point.
sellouts.
trying to do my YouTube impression.
This live stream brought to you in part by Ball Soap. You know,
Okay,
let's do it.
excellent.
We're sponsored.
Well, Lindsay, thank you
Of
Of
so
course,
much.
and ball soap for the female comic book characters while you have the female guest on.
Yes, we are
we do.
that douchey. We are that douchey.
That's right.
Well, Lindsay, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yep.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right, well, that's our show for today. Goodbye, everybody.